Hello and welcome. Tonight, noise-making and absence of defense is how the Attorney General of the Federation describes the governors for withdrawing consent to pay $418 million Paris Club consultant fee. Catholic Archbishop of Sokoto Diocese Matthew Kuka picks hole in APC Muslim ticket, calls it reprehensible, unacceptable move capable of frustrating national integration. The president receives relatives of victims of Kaduna-Abuja train attack at the presidential villa, says actions of bandits cowardly, also promises to secure release of remaining abductees. And 2 more suspects in Owo Catholic Church attack arrested following DSS and military intelligence.
On Business News tonight, federal government set to implement 5% new excise duty tax on all voice calls, SMS and data services, in addition to the existing 7.5% VAT charge.
And on sports news tonight, Nigeria's under-20 women's team, the Falconets, target all 3 points in the midnight clash against France in the opening match of Group C in the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup Finals in Costa Rica.
And from the nation's capital, Labour Party presidential flag bearer Peter Obi addresses supporters in Abuja, promises improved life for Nigerians.
We begin tonight with the controversy over the Paris Club refund paid to consultants, and the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice is talking tough on the subject. He says state governors have no basis to complain about the deductions because, according to him, the governors engaged the consultants under the federal government. Mr. Malami, who was speaking at the ministerial media briefing in the State House, also reeled out his achievements of his ministry. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Muzuke, reports.
The 46th session of the weekly ministerial briefing is anchored by the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami. Addressing a number of issues, including the trending subject of the $418 million Paris Club refund, the Justice Minister, who explains the issue, calls it unjustified noise by the Nigeria Governors Forum.
And among the components of the claim presented for the consideration of the federal government was a component relating to the payment of these consultants that are now constituting the subject of contention. When eventually they made such payments, at a point they took a decision to stop the payment. The consultants instituted an action in court against the Governors Forum. And what happened in court? They submitted to consent judgment. Thereafter, the federal government, under the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, was requested to comply with the judgment and effect payment. And that was the basis and the ground on the basis of which we eventually took a decision advising the president that the payment should be made. And then along the line, there was a change of leadership of the Governors Forum. And all the noise making that is now being generated arising from the Governors Forum is not only unjustified, but indeed a clear case of indeed absence of defense.
Reeling achievements by the sector, Mr. Malami disclosed that over 1,000 convictions on terrorism have been made.
We have so far, as a ministry, secured over 1,000 convictions on terrorism within the period in consideration. What obtained before the coming in place of this administration was an ad hoc arrangement whereby periodically arrangements are made for prosecution of these cases. But then we are now taking steps to ensure at the end of the day that a sustainable arrangement, both in terms of facilities, structures, and indeed as it relates to capacity building, are put in place for addressing, checkmating, and confronting terrorism cases head-on.
According to him, no judgment debt has been incurred by the current administration. Instead, there's been more recoveries.
Within the period under review, the 18-month period in contention, we have equally succeeded in making some international recoveries. In complying with the presidential mandates and foreign judicial processes, the ministry has recovered a total sum of 6,324,627.66 euro from various jurisdictions. And some of the recovered funds are equally being utilized in the financing of critical infrastructures, including Abuja-Kano Expressway, Second Niger Bridge, and Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
On the organ harvesting case involving Senator Ike Ekweremadu, he explains that it remains a criminal case like several others, and the federal government would not want to intervene unless it is necessary to do so. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And reacting to the Attorney General of the Federation's submission on the payment of the $418 million Paris refund claim, an economist, Mr. Eze Onyekpere, says the argument of the Attorney General is spurious and should not be respected by the 36 state governors. He wonders why the minister is showing so much interest in the matter, especially at the time the states are facing economic challenges. Mr. Onyekpere was our guest on our program, Politics Today.
The passion, the zeal with which the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice is pursuing the payment of this sum seems to suggest that there is an interest beyond the public interest, because the Attorney General is the defender of the public interest. What is the public interest involved in this? At a time, most of these states are unable to pay workers their salaries, unable to pay retirees their pensions or gratuities, unable to fund even minimal capital expenditure. So what exactly did the consultants recruit the Honorable Attorney General as their counsel to make sure that this money gets back to them? And the Governors Forum, the letter written by the Ekiti State Governor, is suggesting that the case they went back to court to see if they can set aside whatever judgment that was earlier entered. If we are discussing the rule of law, I believe the Honorable Attorney General should allow that process to run to its conclusion so that you don't overreach whatever information or whatever the decision of the court should be. And so the question is, whose interest is the Honorable Attorney General serving? The public interest or the interest of a few consultants? Now, even when I sit back and wonder what were the terms of reference of these consultants? What special competencies or services did they bring to the table that entitled them to this kind of humongous amount of money?
To security matters, 2 additional suspects linked to the attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo, Ondo State, have been arrested by security operatives. The Director of Defense Information, Major General Jimmy Akpo, confirmed the arrest of the 2 suspects to journalists in Abuja today. Also briefing journalists at the bi-weekly forum, the Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Bernard Onyuko, who explained the troops over the last 2 weeks have neutralized at least 75 terrorists. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, has more.
Days after the media parley between the Chief of Defense Staff and media executives, the military is again engaging members of the media in the same hall. This time, it's to give a rundown of the successes recorded by its troops in various operations across the country.
Any of the directors?
The Director Defense Media Operations, Major General Bernard Onyeuko, begins with the activities of troops of Operation Hadenkei in northeast Nigeria, where he says over 1,755 Boko Haram terrorists and their families have surrendered following sustained air and land raids.
the air component of Operation Hadinkai conducted air interdiction on 3rd August 2022 at Degbawa near Mandara Mountains in Goza local government area of Borno State. The airstrike led to the neutralization of a key Islamic State of West African province commander, Juan Alhaji Modu, otherwise known as Bembem, and his fighters.
The military is also responding to the security challenges in the northwest and north central, resulting in the arrest of 5 suspected foreign bandits at Jibia in Jibia local government area of Katsina State and the neutralization of a high-profile terrorist leader who has been on the wanted list of the military.
The air component of Operation Wild Punch carried a painstaking airstrike during their meeting. In the airstrike, the terrorist leader, Alhaji Shanonu, and scores of his terrorists were eliminated.
Meanwhile, days after the arrest of 4 suspects linked to the attack on St. Francis Catholic Church, Owo, in Ondo State, 2 additional suspects have been arrested. The Director of Defense Information confirms to journalists as he clears the air on the previous arrests made.
Those arrested on the 1st of August were Idris Abdulmalik Omenza, alias Bin Malik, Momo Otuhu Abubakar, Aliu Yusuf Itokba, and Awa Ishak Onimisi. Ojo was not amongst the 4. He was one of the escapees from the correctional center and was arrested in Ondo State. And yesterday again, I sent out another press release of the arrest of 2 additional suspects linked to the attack on the Owo Church.
Meanwhile, Major General Musa Damadami is expected to take over from Major General Onyeuko as the new Director of Defense Media Operations. Empress Simon, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Army has laid to rest the remains of Captain Atta Samuel and 4 other soldiers of the Presidential Guards Brigade who recently paid the supreme price. They were buried at the Guards Brigade Cemetery, Maitama, Abuja, after a Christian wake and funeral service held at St. John's Military Church. The event was witnessed by family members of the officers and friends, as well as senior officers of the Nigerian Army. The soldiers were ambushed by suspected terrorists in July during a clearance operation in Buhari Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory. The soldiers were said to have been serving with 7 Guards Battalion, Lungi Barracks, Maitama, and 176 Guards Battalion, Gwagwalada, in the FCT. Over to the northeast now, where the multinational joint task force says over 100,000 refugees and internally displaced persons, IDPs, have been returned to their ancestral homes around the Lake Chad region. The force commander of the MNJTF, Major General Abdul Khalifa Ibrahim, made this known in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. He added that business and farming activities have also resumed in the communities. He was speaking during the decoration of personnel of Sector 1 of the task force in recognition of their contributions to the success of the operations. In part 2, after the break, federal government determined to ensure a credible census next year, says digital technology will guarantee census accuracy. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Noise-making and absence of defense is how the Attorney General of the Federation describes the governors for withdrawing consent to pay $418 million Paris Club consultant fee. Economist Ezenyekpere says AGF's action not in public interest. Catholic Archbishop Sokoto Diocese Matthew Kuka picks hole in APC Muslim ticket, calls it reprehensible, unacceptable move capable of frustrating national integration. The president receives relatives of victims of Kaduna-Abuja train attack at the presidential villa, says actions of the bandits cowardly, also promises to secure release of remaining abductees. And more than 1,000 firefighters battle what they call a monster wildfire in the southwest of France that has destroyed nearly 7,000 hectares of forests. Nigeria's president has again given the assurance that his administration would do everything within its powers to hasten the safe return of the remaining victims of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack. President Muhammadu Buhari made the pledge when he received representatives of their families and those who lost their loved ones at the State House. He reminded them that several actions have been undertaken to assuage the affected families and prevent a recurrence.
Today marks 136 days since the terrible and cowardly attack was carried out on fellow citizens who were going about their normal lives by some criminal elements in our society, leading to the loss of lives of both train crew members and passengers. I express my deepest and most heartfelt condolences for this loss to you and your families, and we join you as a nation in your plight. It remains our solemn commitment, as demonstrated publicly and behind the scenes, that we will ensure each person currently being held captive is safely returned home to their families. There have been several actions taken from the moment the incident occurred on the 28th of March by various government officials to not only ascertain the extent of fatality and damage caused by the actions of these terrorists, but also how to best bring succor to the affected families and ensure that such an occurrence never again takes place in our country. I have been informed that at last count, there remain about 31 people in the hands of the kidnappers, and our determination is to work towards returning these 31 people to their families.
And staying with events at the State House, President Buhari says that the deployment of digital technology in the 2023 National Population and Housing Census will ensure effectiveness and accuracy in the figures. According to him, the country has accumulated an information vacuum owing to its inability to conduct a census in the last 16 years. He made the disclosure today at the National Stakeholders Summit on the 2023 Population and Housing Census at the State House.
Knowing Nigeria's population and using the data to plan for the people and future generation is a collective duty we owe this nation. We must all resolve that this duty is satisfactorily carried out in the firm belief that what has joined us together as a nation and our common destiny are far stronger than the negative forces that tend to drive us apart. With a projected population of 216,783,381, Nigeria is the sixth most populous country in the world and the most populous country on the African continent. Due to the rapidly growing nature of the population and large proportion of the useful population, Nigeria is also projected to be the third most populous country in the world by the year 2050, after India and China. However, despite Nigeria's high-ranking position on the global demographic map, its population censuses have been conducted irregularly and at intervals longer than the United Nations recommended 10 years. This irregular and long interval of census taking in Nigeria has denied the nation the huge benefits of comprehensive baseline data for evidence-based decision-making. The 2023 census data is also needed to tackle the security challenges bedeviling the country, as it will give an overview of the population, where we are and who we are.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. And we go over to our Abuja studios, where my colleague Terry Kumi is standing by with more stories. Hi, Terry.
Hello, Millicent. Nigerians will no longer allow drivers who lack direction to lead the country. This is the submission of the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, who is promising to improve the welfare of Nigerians. He says his job in 2023 is to wrest power from those who hold it currently and return it to the people through the provision of quality leadership. The former Anambra State Governor was speaking in Abuja at a summit organized by a coalition of support groups for Peter Obi leadership.
The main hall at the International Conference Center is filled to capacity as supporters of the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, converged for a summit on how to actualize the Peter Obi and Yusuf Dati Ahmed presidency in 2023. The arrival of a Labour Party presidential candidate throws the crowd into a frenzy.
Your Excellency!
The conversation here is for young Nigerians to emerge and make a statement on the nation's governance structure in 2023.
This is the first time in the history of the country that you find passionate men and women who have taken their destinies in their hands in order to rescue and change the political narratives in the country. While PDP and APC will give people money to assemble them, we have not given any of these support groups any 1 naira, any 1 kobo.
The youth have fought and won every battle in history as they watch it attributed to their leaders. The youth have developed every country in this planet, and again, they watch it attributed to their leaders. And here is another catch. The labor of our youth present shall never be in vain.
Poor leadership and the need to restore the hope of Nigerians formed the focus of Mr. Obi's address.
And that you are not running for president. You are running for president through us. Our job is to take the power from those who have it and give it back to you. We have a country called Nigeria, but we don't have Nigerians. What we want to do is to create Nigerians. And the only way to create Nigerians is that we must make people to have hope in Nigeria. And the only way to have faith in Nigeria, and the only way to have faith in Nigeria is that there's hope in Nigeria.
Away from the summit, the dynamic ambassadors for Mr. Peter Obi announced a new national spokesman for the group, and is expected to drive the communication strategy of the team as they work towards ensuring that Mr. Obi emerges victorious in 2023.
Well, staying on the issue of leadership, the Catholic Archbishop of Sokoto Diocese, Most Reverend Matthew Kuka, has challenged those seeking to occupy the highest office in the land to be prepared to face public scrutiny before being voted into power. He expressed worries about the choice of the presidential system, explaining that Africans are indeed Nigerians are becoming fed up with democracy. The Archbishop also criticized the decision of the All Progressives Congress to settle for a Muslim ticket, accusing the present administration of distorting what he refers to as our national identity. He was speaking on our program, Politics Today.
In the 2015 elections and the 2019 elections, especially the 2015 elections, had laid a solid foundation for a lot of hope, about national integration. But very clearly, I don't think that anybody who lives in this country, can deny the fact that we've had the most horrible mismanagement of our identities. So really, what you call tension between Christians and Muslims, tensions between Northerners and Southerners, or tensions across the board, is an artificial creation. There is a natural human response to the fact that people have seen very clearly a skewed, unacceptable strategy for managing power and managing identity. So people will naturally respond. I mean, if you walk into the room and you say, look, all women should walk out of the room, you are making a statement. So this government, more than any other government in the history of our nation, has so distorted and destroyed the foundation of our national cohesion.
What do you make of the same faith pairing in Nigeria of today?
But as a Christian, I can tell you very frankly that the decision of the APC, the decision that the APC took, naturally, I felt astonished. The candidates in question, and I might also say without sounding arrogant, that I know all the presidential candidates, at least the prominent presidential candidates that are out there. It is unfortunate that two illustrious people like Asiwaju Bola Tinubu and my friend, Kashim Shettima, should have to face this whole dilemma because it's not of their own making. But I think that the sheer insensitivity that brought us to this point speaks to the fact that somehow our people are not aware, or those who manage our politics are not aware of the volatility, that they have created, in the system. So, point be made. I was secretary of the Political Reform Conference, and I remember all the hoopla about Obasanjo's third term bill and so on. Now, if we went through all this, why would we then try to come through the back door to repeat the same mistakes? So for me, these are the issues, and I think that as a Christian, this is totally reprehensible. It's not acceptable to me. But that's the decision of the APC as a party. If the president didn't think it was rude to ask for my vote, why should it be rude for me to ask him questions? Because democracy is about contestation. It's not about claims. We are not living in an authoritarian regime. We are living in an environment where people must develop the capacity to bang at the doors of those in power and insist that the promises they made to us have not been fulfilled. So this engagement is what drives democracy. Democracy is not going to happen simply because good men and good women have made us promises.
In the National Assembly, members of the House Ad Hoc Committee, which is investigating the petroleum product subsidy regime, have expressed disappointment over the failure of the Governor of the Central Bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, to show up at its hearing. The CBN Governor instead sent a representative whom the lawmakers refused to attend to, describing him as a junior officer. The lawmakers were also furious with the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mohammed Nami, who also failed to attend the hearing. The committee had on Tuesday summoned the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, to appear before it on Tuesday next week after she failed to honor an initial invitation. To Rivers State we go now. Those providing service to the country should not be subjected to indignity and inhuman treatment, especially as it concerns their well-being. That's the view of the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, during the inauguration of the 5,000 capacity ultra-modern National Youth Service Corps Auditorium in Nonwangbam of Tai local government area of the state. The Director General of the NYSC and special guests, Brigadier General Mohammed Fada, appreciated the governor for the gesture, describing the project as first of its kind.
Governor Nyesom Wike, his guest, the Director General of the National Youth Service Corps in Nonwangbam in Tai local government area of River State for the inauguration of the 5,000 capacity auditorium. The project is considered another evidence of Governor Wike's commitment in improving the level of infrastructure for both state and federal agencies.
Your Excellency, I can comfortably and confidently tell you that there is no NYC auditorium of this kind in the 36 states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, including Abuja. Your Excellency, like the chairman said, this proves that you are a unifier. You believe in the unity of Nigeria. Your Excellency, this project has a main gallery. The main gallery has the up and the down.
The Director General of the Corps, Brigadier General Mohammed Fada, asked other state governors to emulate the River State government.
It has been our call all over the state to have something like this. Thank God River State have took the lead, just like what the Commissioner said earlier. This is the first of its kind. And I know the rest of the states will copy from River State.
Commander of the Order of the Niger,
The motivation behind this project, according to Governor Wike, is to provide comfort to promising young Nigerians who are posted from across the country to render selfless service to the state.
How can we allow graduates, those of them who may even have their first degrees, second degrees, and even PhDs, to be camped in an area that is not worthy of human beings to stay? I said no. Some people say, oh, NYSC is a federal government agency. And I asked them a question. Where are they serving? Whom are they serving? They are serving in River State, rendering services to the people of River State and to the government of River State.
I'm here to declare or commission this auditorium for service of humanity.
After the inauguration, the governor and his guests take a tour of the ultramodern facility that will serve young Nigerians who are providing service to the state and the nation.
Well, that's all from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Terry. A biorepository has been officially commissioned and handed over to the Central Public Health Laboratory in Lagos. The facility where specimens of infectious diseases will be stored was supported by the United States Center for Disease Control and the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Our correspondent Mary Alale Yusuf has more.
This building now houses the newest biorepository in Nigeria, the Lagos campus of the National Reference Laboratory.
We cannot thank you enough.
The purpose of this venture, sponsored by the United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention, is to store biospecimens for future reference. The U.S. Consul General believes a lot can and is being achieved in the area of infectious disease control in Nigeria because of her great human and intellectual capacity.
It's an important step in building sustainable capacity in Nigeria to work here, to develop capacity here.
As the watchdog for the nation's health, the Director General of the NCDC is happy that the facility will help save more lives.
If nothing, the ongoing pandemic and COVID-19 pandemic and monkeypox outbreaks, especially now that monkeypox has been declared as a public health emergency of international concern, continue to be evidence of the importance of health emergency preparedness. And as I said earlier, when you consider the economic costs, prevention is certainly better than cure. And more importantly, in our work to mitigate the impact of public health challenges, it is essential that we consider every life valuable and the preservation of that as a priority.
NCDCCPHL.
This biorepository has 10 minus 80 degrees centigrade refrigerators. It also has 3 levels of backup to ensure uninterrupted power supply.
As part of the quality management system, you need to negative samples, positive controls to keep people, both the laboratory scientists and others who work in the lab, keep them proficient, and then also to demonstrate that the lab as well is able to properly detect the pathogens that they are testing for.
We started implementing this, did a number of renovations for the lab, got the equipment and supplies, have them installed, activated and certified, and that's what we have seen today.
The National Repository Laboratory in Abuja, which the Lagos facility will complement, is the largest in West Africa, and the campus in Lagos is one of 5 around the country. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
And as part of efforts to ensure peaceful coexistence of Kogi residents, Governor Yaya Bello is asking the newly constituted State Boundary Committee to work towards resolving all lingering crises in the state. The committee was set up to ensure that conflict arising from boundary disputes between Kogi State and 9 other bordering states, including the Federal Capital Territory, are resolved amicably in the interest of the country.
Boundary disputes remain a challenge in some parts of the country, including Kogi State. And because the state is bordered by 9 other states, including the FCT, the state government is determined to resolve issues of boundary disputes, which is the reason for this inauguration of the Boundary Committee at the banquet hall of the Government House, Lokoja, the state capital. One of the aim of setting up the committee, with membership cutting across royal fathers, top government functionaries and civil servants, is to maintain peace and security around the boundary areas of the state and to avoid unnecessary conflicts that often result in crisis.
Boundary Committee.
Governor Bello, while inaugurating the 15-man committee headed by the state deputy governor, admonishes them to work towards ensuring lasting resolution of all lingering boundary disputes, as he recalls some of the conflict between Kogi State and other states and communities within the state before his administration.
Before the advent of this administration, we used to have issues almost with other states and even amongst us, within local governments, even clans and what have you. But we have been able to maintain that peace and peaceful coexistence.
The chairman of the committee, who's also the deputy governor of the state, applauds the governor for his sterling leadership qualities in ensuring that conflicts arising from boundary disputes are reduced to the barest minimum in the state. He assures the governor that the committee will utilize their wealth of experience to navigate all existing conflicts amongst states bordering Kogi State.
With this inauguration, myself as chairman and the entire members of this Kogi State Boundary Committee wish to appreciate you and also assure you, as you have charged, that we would use our wealth of wisdom and experience to navigate the naughty waters that may arise and exist amongst our boundary states.
Earlier in her remarks, the secretary to the state government, who read out names of members of the committee, explains that the Kogi State Boundary Committee derives its legal backing from the National Boundary Commission Act of 2006, which empowers state governments to inaugurate the committee.
We need to note that the state boundaries, according to the Act 2006 of the National Boundary Commission, we use that Act, Section 24(1), to put together the members, the chairman and members of the committee.
With the inauguration of the committee, the Kogi State government is optimistic that crises arising from boundary disputes will be averted in the state.
The Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, NSITF, is working to improve on its 14-day timeline of payment of claims to ensure subscribers of the Employee Compensation Scheme access their claims within 10 working days. Speaking at a stakeholders technical forum on Service Compact with all Nigerians, Servicom in Abuja, the managing director of NSITF, Mr. Michael Akabogu, says the forum is geared towards ensuring that all officers of the organization deliver quality service to their customers.
Over the past 1 year, most of our claims are actually paid even before the 14 days. I guarantee you these are old stories. And to be able to make sure that we even shorten it, we are getting into the ENSITF, which each and every one of you, the media people, over like past 3 or 2 months, we get an approval from FEC for the Federal Executive Council to be able to implement that. So now from the 13 days, we are actually trying to move it less than 10 days if we're able to get the ENSITF going. But mostly, some of the people, the injured people, the time that they report these claims has to play. Because some of them get injured, they will not report the claim the time they're supposed to report the claim. Well, yes, we have a mechanism of it. The problem here in Nigeria is that people don't actually channel what is required to the right source. Okay, we have a department, Servicom department is there. We have people in claims. Equally, we have risk management department, various places or various departments or units that is meant to have to handle such complaints. But most time, they don't report this to us. They keep it within themselves and still complain. But the ones that we actually receive, we do what? We tackle them.
It's now time for some business news. Here's Anne Wilder.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. The federal government has confirmed its decision to proceed with a planned implementation of a 5% hike in excise duty tax for calls and data services in Nigeria. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, who made this known today at a stakeholders meeting organized by the Nigerian Communications Commission, says the increase will come in addition with the existing 7.5% value-added tax on goods and services. The statement released at the end of the meeting mentioned that the tariff hike will go on despite its recent rejection by the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Professor Bantami. Meanwhile, analysts say the new tax regime will not only affect subscribers but also add tax burden on the telecom operators and will translate into higher tariff. The federal government is promising to improve funding for agri-research institutions as part of its efforts in boosting food security, preventing post-harvest losses, and training minimal export rejections. Speaking during the presentation of the International Standard Organization certificate to the Nigeria Stored Product Research Institute, the director in charge of agricultural land and climate change at the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Shehu Bello, explains that the award of the international certificate is a further boost for the agency to ensure quality and standards management for all agricultural products. The Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Limited, NLNG, has reacted to a report by Vanguard newspapers online published on August the 10th, which alleged how government officials facilitated $1.2 billion crude oil gas theft. In a statement released today, the NLNG's management says that report, which is a rehash of fallout claims reported in an online media channel in January this year, is false, malicious, and a deliberate attempt calculated to cast the company and its leadership in bad light. The NLNG explains that contrary to that allegation of export of LNG without paperwork, records exist for every single cargo of product loaded by the company since it commenced operations, together with full, accurate accounts of destinations, quantities loaded, and of course unloaded, and related earnings on each cargo. It also mentions that its shareholders, including NNPC Limited and 3 IOCs, have never reported that any cargo or any product of the company was lost or unaccounted for in the past financial years, which are periodically audited, including the periods alluded to in that report. Meanwhile, the NLNG now says that it demands an immediate retraction of the false and malicious report by the Vanguard in its entirety, in addition to an apology which must be given as much prominence as the original report. The International Energy Agency, IEA, says the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies may not carry out the expected oil output increase in the coming months, and this is due to limited spare capacity. That report, which cites comparatively low levels of operational spare output capacity, held mainly by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, is contained in a Paris-based Intergovernmental Energy Organization's monthly report for this month. And this is also coming as the United States is putting pressure on oil producers to increase output. Meanwhile, the IEA pointed out that non-OPEC plus supply is projected to rise 1.7 million barrels per day by the year 2022 and 1.9 million in 2023, which is a significant improvement compared to 2021. In the market, it's another back and forth movement at the local stock markets today. 33 billion naira. That's the amount knocked off from gains recorded in the previous trading session. Let's hear the details from Laddie Williams.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the bounce we saw yesterday in the market is short-lived as market closes in the red today. Yeah, and looking at the all-share index now, we see it's still within that 50,000 range at 50,014 points. It's down 0.12% today. And if we look at the market cap now, we see 26.976 trillion naira traded. Is below the 27 trillion that we had starting the week. Let's move over now to the activity chart. There we see 133 million units of stocks were traded, valued at 2.43 billion naira. We see value increasing today compared to yesterday. And the deals, we see more deals back to the 4,293 rate now. Let's move on to the sectoral performance now. We see banking there. It's down 0.62%. We see some tier 1 banking stocks down. Consumer goods there marginally down by 0.03%. And we see oil and gas unchanged, just like the last time. Let's flip over to the top gainers list. Now we see Nigerian Aviation Handling Company. It's up 10%, closing at 5.83 kobo. And we see FCMB there up 9.84%. Closing at 3.35 kobo, and the Ikeja Hotel 1.16 kobo, up 9.43%. Flip over to the losers counter now. We see ABC Transport there, 28 kobo, to close down 6.67%. We see Jai's Bank. This one has been on my radar for a while now. It's at 85 kobo now, down 5.56%. And we see Stanbic too, another bank there, 3.28 kobo, down 3.28%. So yeah, it's a negative close, and due to MTN there, we saw MTN losing about 1 naira. But we have a positive market breadth today. Final trading day tomorrow. Let's see if we can get a big close. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. And firefighters in France are battling what they say is a monster wildfire southwest of the country, which has not only destroyed thousands of hectares of land, but forced 10,000 people to flee. Simon Pusey has more on Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. More than 1,000 firefighters are battling what they call a monster wildfire in southwestern France that has already destroyed nearly 7,000 hectares of forest. The raging blaze near the city of Bordeaux has gutted a number of homes and forced 10,000 residents to flee. Strong winds and high temperatures are hampering the firefighting operation. President Emmanuel Macron announced that Austria, Germany, Greece, Poland and Romania are coming to aid France in battling the blaze. European solidarity at work, he tweeted. Meanwhile, over 200 firefighters were called to tackle a bushfire in Gorman in California on Wednesday after the blaze spread over 150 acres. Soaring temperatures and turbulent winds formed a firenado in flames. Firenados, also known as fire devils, are towers of fire that are formed when hot, dry air is mixed with fire. According to the Los Angeles County Fire Department, no structures in the area were immediately threatened. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged Western nations to declare Russia a terrorist state. He was speaking as European defense ministers met in Copenhagen to discuss long-term support for the country's defense against Russia's invasion. Zelensky also addressed the delegates, saying his country needed armor and ammunition for its defense. Denmark announced it will increase its financial aid to Ukraine by 110 million euros. Satellite images appear to show major damage and a number of destroyed Russian warplanes at a Crimea airbase following explosions there this week. The Saki base in the west of Russian-ruled Crimea was rocked by a string of blasts on Tuesday, killing one person. The base's runways appear intact, but at least 8 aircraft seem damaged or destroyed, with several craters visible. Ukraine has not claimed responsibility, but this new evidence suggests the possibility of a targeted attack. The images from the US-based Planet Labs show large areas of scorched earth left from fires that had erupted. Kenyans still do not know who their next president will be more than 45 hours after polls closed. Election head Wafulu Chebukati has urged people to be patient and not to panic. The media houses are releasing different tallies. Each organisation is making its own calculations based on the manual entry of data from more than 46,000 polling stations, but it is only the Electoral Commission that can declare the winner. The media's tallies show that the two leading candidates so far, Raila Odinga and William Ruto, are neck and neck. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has expressed serious concerns about the human rights situation in Rwanda after talks with President Paul Kagame in the capital Kigali. Mr. Blinken said he had raised US concerns about the detention of Paul Rusesabagina, a permanent resident of the United States who is credited with saving hundreds of lives during the Rwandan genocide in 1994. Mr. Blinken said he had urged President Kagame to address concerns about legal protections afforded to Rusesabagina, particularly the lack of a fair trial.
We recognize that Rwanda has security concerns of its own, including reports of cooperation between the Congolese military and the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the DFLR, an armed group. In our discussions, I also raised serious concerns about human rights. As I told President Kagame, we believe people in every country should be able to express their views without fear of intimidation, imprisonment, violence, or any other forms of repression. That's true whether they're political opponents, human rights defenders, journalists like the ones in this audience, or simply citizens. These are values cherished by the American people and people around the world. That's why I raised them, as have members of the U.S. Congress. I raised the case of Paul Rusesabagina, who is a lawful permanent resident of the United States, and underscored our concerns about the lack of fair trial guarantees provided to him.
And finally, a woman in Brazil has been arrested on suspicion of using a psychic to swindle her mother out of more than $140 million in art, cash and jewellery. The alleged victim is reportedly the widow of one of Brazil's foremost art collectors. Her daughter is accused of stealing her artwork by using a psychic to pretend it was cursed. One painting by one of Brazil's most celebrated artists was reportedly found stashed under a bed. According to police in Rio de Janeiro and local media reports, the scam began in 2020 when the victim was told by a supposed psychic that her daughter was ill and was persuaded to pay for treatment. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. In and about an hour from now, two-time runners-up and one-time semi-finalists, the Falconets of Nigeria, will file out against France in the opening match of Group C in the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup in San Jose, Costa Rica. Coach Christopher Danjuma says the girls are well prepared for the task against the European side, having prepared well for the tournament. First choice, Monle Oyono is expected to be in goal against the French side, with Omomi Oshobukola and Jumoke Alani also favoured to retain their places. And Raheem Sterling has revealed that his unwillingness to accept a lack of game time at Manchester City led to his move to Chelsea this summer. The 27-year-old completed his transfer to Stamford Bridge in a deal worth up to £50 million last month, which ended his 7-year stay at the Etihad. Sterling found himself on the bench for City's important matches last season, including the Champions League semi-final clashes against Real Madrid. And that's a wrap on Sports News. It's back to Millicent with the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Victor. And the main news again, noise-making and absence of defense. That was how the Attorney General of the Federation described the governors for withdrawing consent to pay $418 million Paris Club consultant fee. Economist Eze Yekpere said his action was not in the public interest. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.